Mantras of our Divine Mother, date 8th December. Our Divine Mother says, the errors can become stepping stones, the blind gropings can be changed in conquest. With my blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers of 1930. Topic: difficulties in yoga. Our Divine Mother says, the nature of your difficulty indicates the nature of the victory you will gain, the victory you will exemplify in yoga. Thus, if there is a persistent selfishness, it points to a realization of universality as your most prominent achievement in the future. And when selfishness is there, you have also the power to reverse this very difficulty into its opposite, a victory of utter wideness. When you have something to realize, you will have in you just the characteristic which is the contradiction of that something. Face to face with the defect, the difficulty, you say, "Oh, I am like that. How awful it is," but you ought to see the truth of the situation. Say to yourself, my difficulty shows me clearly what I have ultimately to represent. To reach the absolute negation of it, the quality at the other pole, this is my mission. Our Divine Mother says, even in ordinary life, we have sometimes the experience of contraries. He who is very timid and has no courage in front of circumstances proves capable of bearing the most. To one who has the aspiration for the divine, the difficulty which is always before him is the door by which he will attain God in his own individual manner. It is his particular path towards the divine realization. There is also the fact that if somebody has 100 difficulties, it means that he will have a tremendous realization, provided, of course, there are in him patience and endurance, and he keeps the aspiring flame of Agni burning against those defects. And remember, the grace of the divine is generally proportional to your difficulties, says our Divine Mother. Next subtopic, knowledge by unity with the divine will in the world. Our Divine Mother says, consciousness is the faculty of becoming aware of anything whatsoever through identification with it. But the divine consciousness is not only aware but knows and effects. For mere awareness is not knowledge. To become aware of a vibration, for instance, does not mean that you know everything about it. Only when the consciousness participates in the divine consciousness does it get full knowledge by identification with the object. Our Divine Mother says, ordinarily, identification leads to ignorance rather than knowledge, for the consciousness is lost in what it becomes and is unable to envisage proper causes, concomitants, and consequences. Thus, you identify yourself with a moment of anger, and your whole being becomes one angry vibration, blind and precipitate, oblivious of everything else. It is only when you stand back, remain detached in the midst of the passionate turmoil, that you are able to see the process with knowing eye. So, knowledge in the ordinary state of being is to be obtained rather by stepping back from a phenomena to watch it without becoming identified with it. But the divine consciousness identifies itself with its objects and knows it thoroughly, because it always becomes one with the essential truth or law inherent in each fact. And it not only knows, but by knowing brings about what it wants. To become conscious is for it to be effective, each of its movements being a flash of omnipotence which besides illumining, blazes its way ultimate to the goal dictated by its truth nature. Our Divine Mother says, your ordinary consciousness is very much mixed up with unconsciousness, fumbles, strains, and is thwarted, while by unity with the Supreme, you share the Supreme nature and get the full knowledge whenever you turn to observe any object and identify yourself with it. Of course, this does not necessarily amount to embracing all the contents of the divine consciousness. Our Divine Mother says, your moments become true, but you do not possess all the manifold riches of the Divine's activity. Still, within your sphere, you are able to see correctly and according to the truth of things, which is certainly more than what is called, in yogic parlance, knowledge by identity. For the kind of identification taught by many disciplines extend your limits of perception without piercing to the innermost heart of an object. It sees from within it, as it were, but only its phenomenal aspects. For example, if you identify yourself with a tree, you become aware in the way in which a tree is aware of itself, yet you do not come to know everything about a tree for the simple reason that it is itself not possessed of such knowledge. You do share the tree's inner feeling, but you certainly do not understand the truth it stands for. Anything more than being conscious of your own natural self, you possess at once the divine reality which you secretly are. Our Divine Mother says, whereas if you are one with the divine consciousness, you know over and above how the tree feels, what the truth behind it is. In short, you know everything because the divine consciousness knows everything. Indeed, there are many means of attaining this unity. It may be done through aspiration or surrender or some other method, each followed with persistence and sincerity leads to it. Aspiration is the dynamic push of your whole nature behind the resolution to reach the divine. Surrender, on the other hand, may be defined as the giving up of the limits of your ego. To surrender to the divine is to renounce your narrow limits and let yourself be invaded by it and made a center for its play. But you must bear in mind that the universal consciousness so beloved of yogis is not the divine. You can break your limits horizontally if you like, but you will be quite mistaken if you take the sense of wideness and cosmic multiplicity to be the divine. Our Divine Mother says the universal movement is after all a mixture of falsehood and truth, so that to stop there is to be imperfect. For you may very well share the cosmic consciousness without ever attaining the transcendent truth. On the other hand, to go to the divine is also to attain the universal realization, yet remain free of falsehood. The real bar to self-surrender, whether to the universal or to the transcendent, is the individual's love of his own limitations. It is a natural love, since in the very formation of the individual being, there is a tendency to concentrate on limits. Without that, there would be no sense of separateness. All would be mixed. All happens quite often in the mental and vital movements of consciousness. It is the body, especially, which preserves separative individuality by not being so fluid. But once this separateness is established, there creeps in the fear of losing it, a healthy instinct in many respects, but misapplied with regard to the divine. For in the divine, you do not really lose your individuality. You only give up your egoism and become the true individual, the divine personality, which is not temporary like the construction of the physical consciousness, which is usually taken for yourself. One touch of the divine consciousness and you see immediately that there is no loss in it. On the contrary, you acquire a true and individual permanence which can survive 100 deaths of the body and all the vicissitudes of the vital mental evolution. Without this transfiguring touch, you always go about in fear. With it, you gradually develop the power to make even your physical being plastic without losing its individuality. Even now, it is not entirely rigid. It is able to feel the conscious movements of others by a sort of sympathy which translates itself into nervous reactions to their joys and sufferings. It is also able to express your inner movements. It is well known that the face is an index and mirror to the mind, but only the divine consciousness can make the body responsive enough to reflect all the movements of the supramental immortality and be an expression of the true soul, and by being divinized reach the acme of a supreme individuality which can even physically rise superior to the necessity of death and dissolution. In conclusion, says our Divine Mother, I should like to draw your attention to one point, for it very frequently obstructs the true union. It is a great error to suppose that the divine will is always acting openly in the world. All that happens is not in fact divine. The supreme will is distorted in the manifestation owing to the combination of lower forces which translate it. They are the medium which falsifies its impetus and gives it an undivine result. If all that happened were indeed the faultless translation of it, how could you account for the distortions of the world? Not that the divine will could not have caused the cosmic ignorance. It is omnipotent and all possibilities are inherent in it. It can work out anything of which it sees secret necessity in its original vision. And the first cause of the world is of course the divine, though we must take care not to adjudge this fact mentally according to our petty ethical values. But once the conditions of the cosmos were laid down and the involution into nescience accepted as the basis of a progressive manifestation of the divine out of all that seemed its very opposite, there took place a sort of division between the higher and the lower. The history of the world became a battle between the true and the false, in which the details are not at all direct representations of the divine progressive action, but rather distortions of it to conquer in the world. For the world would be harmonious, a constant passages from one perfection to another instead of the conflict which is the game of hazards and various possibilities in which the divine faces real opposition, real difficulty and often real temporary defeat on the way to final victory. It is just this reality of the whole play that makes it no mere jest. The divine will actually suffers distortion the moment it touches the hostile forces in the ignorance. Hence, we must never slacken our efforts to change the world and bring about a different order. We must be vigilant to cooperate with the divine and not placidly think that whatever happens is always the best. All depends upon the personal attitude. If in the presence of circumstances that on the point of occurring, you take the highest possible attitude, that is to say, if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within your reach, you can be absolutely certain that in such a case, whatever happens is the best that can happen to you. But as soon as you fall from this consciousness and come down into a lower state, then it is evident that what happens cannot be the best since you are not in your best consciousness. As Sri Aurobindo once said, what happened had to happen, but it could not have been much better. Because the person to whom it happened was not in the highest consciousness, there was no consequence possible. But if he had brought about a descent of the divine, then even if the situation in general had been inevitable, it could have turned out in a different way. What makes all the difference is how you receive the impulsion of the divine will. You must rise very high before you can meet this will in its plenary splendor of authority. Not before you open your lower nature to it can it begin to manifest in terms of the truth. You must therefore refrain from applying the merely Gnosticism standard of temporary success in order to differentiate the divine from the undivine. For life is a battle in which the divine succeeds in detail only when the lower nature is receptive to the impulsions instead of siding with the hostile forces. And even then, the test is not so much external as internal. A divine movement cannot be measured by apparent signs, is a certain kind of vibration that indicates its presence. External tests are of no avail, since when what is in appearance a failure may be in fact a divine achievement. What you have to do is to give yourself up to the grace of the divine, for it is under the form of grace, of love, that it has consented to uplift the universe after the first involution was established. With the divine love is the supreme power of transformation. It has this power because it is for the sake of transformation that it has given itself to the world and manifested everywhere. Not only has it infused itself into man, but also into all the atoms of the most obscure matter in order to bring the world back to the original truth. It is this descent that is called the supreme sacrifice in the Indian scriptures. But it is a sacrifice only from the human point of view. The human mind thinks that if it had to do such a thing, it would be a tremendous sacrifice. But the divine cannot really be diminished. Its infinite essence can never become less, no matter what sacrifices are made. The moment you open to the divine love, you also receive its power of transformation. But it is not in terms of quantity that you can measure it. What is essential is a true contact, for you will find that the true contact with it is sufficient to fill at once the whole of your being. These are the words of our Divine Mother.